you.
Good afternoon, folks. A very cozy room, air-conditioned, a fantastic, fabulous lunch all of us had. It's a very nice time to actually sit down and sleep. And it's not a great time to have a presentation at all, right? And I'll kind of make it short. My whole goal is to basically talk about the importance of networking. I have a presentation, and it's just got visuals, right? It's an illustration of this network that's with us all the time. It follows us wherever we go, and it's invisible, but it enables so many different things in our lives today. And I'm sure it's going to do the same in the future also. I hope the slides turn on. Yeah? Okay. So next slide, please. Is somebody going to flip it? The flipper. Next slide. The flipper is here. The flipper. So while they're trying to figure this out, it's come up. I just wanted to appreciate EduSkills. When you come for an EduSkills event, everybody gets an award. It's just fabulous, right? It just makes you feel so good, right? We all need a good pat in the back, and Shubhajit and Satya, I think they do a fabulous job. I wish them all success, right? So this is a picture of a data center, and everybody knows what a data center is, right? Do you know that there are about 11,000 and fast-growing data centers in the planet today, right? And they supply massive amounts of compute, massive amounts of storage, massive amounts of network, which are the three fundamental elements, right? And it's just proliferating. And it's changing the life of the enterprises and how they actually look at their businesses, right? Doesn't work. I think I need some help. Yes. Okay. All these visuals are, it'll appear as though they are completely disconnected, but I'll come back and tell you that the network plays a very important role in all of these visuals, right? This is a Government of India enterprise, RailTel, Navratna, right? They kind of run one of the largest fiber optic network in the country, right? Nearly 60,000 kilometers of fiber cable connectivity, 6,000 plus railway stations in the nook and corner of the nation connected through a network, right? And their vision is to be an unbiased telecom service provider for the knowledge economy of India. That's their vision, right? Next slide. Yeah, I mean, all of us fly in and fly out, right? Delhi International Airport has a capacity of 45 million passengers. Last year, they handled about 8 million passengers and probably like 10 million individual cargo entries. Huge capacity, massive airport. Whenever there is a customer support call, we often tread and we are afraid of the fact that it could be a Juniper network that could be causing the outage. Airports are heavily dependent on the network, right? Heavily dependent on the network. Autonomous cars, right? It's a very fascinating technology, right? Driving on Indian roads with a very skilled driver is a massive task, right? But here we are talking about autonomous cars, right? So they have to figure out and sense what's the obstacle in the front. They have to sense the traffic lights. They have to sense the pedestrians. They have to sense the other vehicular traffic. They have to sense so many things and still manage to go on the road, manage to assist people and go on the road and not cause accidents, right? It's an amazing technology. Maybe in the future it's going to be a reality. Next slide. 5G networks, right? Again, it's a technology that's going to build massive network capacity, right, as individuals, right? See, one thing that you notice is wherever you go, people show you a lot of respect because they bow their head down. What they're doing is they're actually looking at their mobile phones, right? So much of respect, right? So I travel in Bangalore Metro. Sometimes I do get a seat to sit down. And then I look around. Everybody has their heads bowed down, right? All of them have their mobile phones and busy doing so many different things, right? This 5G network's capacity is super massive, right? 10 to 20 Gbps an individual can get on their handsets, right? Ultra low latency, right? And this is real, right? And this is going to rule the world, right? Next slide. Hyperscalers, right? We did have one of the hyperscalers come and give us a fantastic presentation today. They run like huge data center farms. And they offer their massive compute, storage, and network as a platform for enterprises to use them to deploy their mission-critical applications, large-scale applications and services, right? And they are dependent on the network as much as the others are, right? AI clusters, right? AI is something that everybody talks about today. There is a fear that we're going to lose our jobs very soon. There's a fear that machines can do so many different things. It takes nearly 2 decades for a human being to kind of grow up and learn so many things and acquire the skills. An AI-trained cluster can probably do it in like few months, or maybe even sooner than that in the future. So there is a fear. But I believe that human intelligence cannot be surpassed. I belong to that school. Human intelligence cannot be surpassed, right? There will always be challenges for us to figure out how we lead our lives. Machines cannot get better than us, and it should be and it will be in our control and our influence. I belong to that school of thought, so I don't want to really spread the fear. But there are a number of opportunities that will open up, right? So if you look at why this AI cluster is showing up here, I mean, everybody knows GPUs. GPUs kind of are interconnected, and they actually transfer massive amounts of data between themselves, and they end up training, they end up with inference, and then they actually give that inference back to us, right? So again, a huge dependency on the network. Next slide. Some time ago, India launched Chandrayaan, right? As Indians, we were super proud, right? All of us were proud, right? It actually landed, right? It actually landed. And just before it landed, there was another launch from Russia, and that mission was a failure, right? Chandrayaan landed. It did send back a lot of information to us, and we all felt really proud, right? Indian space research is just amazing, right? It's just amazing. And a few weeks later, everything happened. A few weeks later, we got a call in Juniper from one of the government agencies. I won't name them, and they said, "Thank you, Juniper." So we were like, why are they thanking us, right? Turns out that all the ISRO ground stations were connected by a network, and pre-launch and post-launch and during the mission, they wanted a network that is super stable, and they decided to enable a set of Juniper routers and interconnect all these ground stations, and it worked like a charm, right? We felt very proud about that. We didn't know that this was happening. And it turns out that this particular product that was used to interconnect all the ground stations was a product that was designed and built in our Bangalore labs of Juniper, right? Something that we felt very proud about, right? Next slide. Payments, right? I mean, when you travel outside India, you realize how these digital payment infrastructure in India is so large, so influential, so pervasive, right? You can go to the tiniest and tiniest of shops and still not have any cash on you and get away with it, right? And that's amazing. That's just amazing, right? And this network, right? I mean, this payment digital infrastructure depends on a highly reliable, stable network, right? And that makes things happen, right? Next slide. Yeah. Manufacturing is another major area. I think somebody mentioned about how important manufacturing is to our country. Manufacturing can provide a lot of jobs in our country. And Juniper's manufacturing has always been outside India. It's never been in India. It's always been outside India, right? This year, we made a decision to build one of our routers in India. We're going to build it in India in a company called VVDN, right? So we're going to make that announcement. But it's a matter of great pride, right? And as we venture into building Juniper products in India and make them in India and contribute to Make in India initiative, it is also important for us to think about what does Make in India in the true sense mean? Make in India in the true sense could mean assembling products, or is it about indigenization, right? And I think it's more about indigenization than assembly. And in order for us to get this indigenization, I'm going to throw something at you folks, right? I think when we look at relationship with educational institutions, we need to think beyond jobs and placements. Educational institutions are investing in great talent of the future, and this talent pool that you guys are nurturing will also produce amazing research. And I think we need to figure out, industry and academy put together, we need to figure out how do we kind of get that research, commercialize that research. And I believe that one of the strong points that exists in the United States is they actually have figured out how to bring the research that happens in their universities and partner with the industry and get that to the consumer. And that kind of keeps them in the leading edge, cutting edge all the time, right? And somewhere I think, placements is good. Your students will have to complete their courses. Your students will have to necessarily find a job, make their living, and so on and so forth. But I think there is something even beyond that, and we can imagine that, and we can partner on that, and we should, as industry and academia. I think in this country, we should think about it. Food for thought. Next slide, green technology. I think fundamentally the carbon emissions are killing the planet, right? In Juniper, we set up a 52-acre farm, a solar power generation farm in a place called Chitradurga in Karnataka state, producing about 15 megawatts of power. Is it important? I think it's important because we have a huge data center, and nearly 95% of the electricity that goes into the data center comes from renewable sources and from the solar power plant, right? So it's a matter of pride, but I think we have to be responsible citizens of this planet. Next slide. Retail chains, right? Nobody would think about retail chains and that visual coming up in a slide on networking, but retail chains have huge dependency on the network. Some of you, those of you who have actually visited a McDonald's in the recent times, will find that they have these self-ordering kiosks and multiples of them, right? These self-ordering kiosks, right, make it easy for us to go look at all the options, pick what we want, add on what we want, make the order, go sit on the table, and it gets delivered in your table, right? And that has a lot of network behind it, a lot of technology behind it. And according to McDonald's, it's actually increasing their level of business, right? Another example of network being important. So all these illustrations will let you know that network as a technology which is fundamental to how we live is something that your students and yourself can get curious about and can build your skills and can build on top of it, can increase, enhance your learning on top of it. Yeah. Next slide. Healthcare is another massive application, and network plays a very vital role. During the pandemic, we figured out how the network was helping us, right? Be it telemedicine, be it remote consultations, etc. Another big application. Yeah. Next slide. So this is an eye chart of what happens in the internet, and it's mind-blowing. This actually explains what happens in just like a single minute. In 1 minute, what happens in the internet, right? It's difficult to read, but I would probably pick a couple of things, right? 16 million texts in a minute, 231 million emails in a minute, 3.47 million YouTube videos watched in a minute, right? It goes on and on. So it's a very, very massive network, right? And that leads us to the next slide, which is, there's something called as the internet exchange points, right? These are massive interconnects between the telecom providing networks and the content providing networks, and these internet exchange points are placed in vital locations across the planet. And you can imagine, in some of the large internet exchange points and what kind of traffic that they see in a second, right? It's massive, massive, massive. And the whole planet is interconnected, right? Completely interconnected, right? And Juniper is one of the biggest providers of this interconnectivity in the globe today, right? Nearly 50% of this traffic flows through Juniper products, right? And we are also in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, in the leadership quadrant last 4 years, primarily in 2 segments. One is data center networking, and the other is campus and branch networking, right? So we've been in the leadership quadrant, and we kind of drive this technology, right? Next slide. So Juniper India key highlights, 60% of global product engineering happens out of Bangalore. We have about 1,200 plus patents filed by our engineers in Bangalore. A lot of ownership-based development, and we have been growing for the last 20 years, right? Starting with 13 engineers, right? We have been growing for the past 20 years, right? And we've always been at educational institutions trying to see how we can partner with you folks, etc. But I think with this EduSkills partnership, we are getting a lot more reach, and we would like to take advantage of that, and thank you for that. That's a journey slide. Next slide. A lot of recognitions for Juniper. All right, I won't go into that. Next slide. Thank you. I wanted to finish in 15 minutes. I don't know how long it took, but thank you. Before I close, right? As human beings, we all have to have this notion of gratitude, right? Because we're always stressed, we're always anxious, we always are heading and racing towards something in life, and we don't know what it is, right? But people say that if you have gratitude, right, it kind of brings a level of calmness in you. It kind of brings a level of peace in you, and that results in happiness. And that results in positivity, right? And we need to spread more positivity. The world needs it, right? So as I end my speech, I express my gratitude to EduSkills and to all of you for giving me and Juniper this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you,